This summer, from a place with an endless summer, in a world that could be anywhere in the world, comes the story of the people behind the stories. They are the Western Cape film industry. Get ready for the talented locals who brought you big budget films that we're legally able to cut into this montage. Do you need a bunch of pirates battling out at sea? Or world-class voiceovers?
Read by a zombie.
Or maybe high-octane gunfights that end in car chases? We've got the lot. Get it? Never mind. If you can imagine it, we can write it, build it, and blow it up. Boom. You know what? We can animate it too. And even turn it into a game. Impressive. Witness the critically acclaimed Western Cape as a breathtaking backdrop like this one. Oh, swooping. Do you want to shoot in a city that could be any city for half the budget? We've got that. Exotic locations? We've got that too. Craft services and catering in the middle of nowhere? Piece of cake.
With a vegan option.
Critics are calling it one of the world's leading hubs for international film and television. And there's what this guy said. Whatever the story is, find the right places, people, and penguins to tell it. In the Western Cape, of course. Nice.
Thank you for joining us for this Pan-African co-production discussion at the Encounters Film Festival. It's been a great festival so far. Thank you to all the sponsors and funders. Some of them are on this panel, and we're really excited to have this discussion. 2 hours are going to fly by. We do have interpretation from English to French. If you pick the button, that's for you. It is being recorded, and it is streaming live on Facebook and other channels. So if you didn't make it into the Zoom, your questions will be brought by the amazing interns at Encounters, funded by the President's Fund to bring to our panelists. We have 3 representatives from amazing initiatives that drive the ecosystem of documentary production in Africa. And then we will follow up with a discussion with our National Film and Video Foundation in South Africa representative. After all 4 speakers have spoken, then I'll moderate a conversation. I'm Monica RORVIK from Wesgro, which is the tourism trade investment agency in the Western Cape in Cape Town. And that video that you just watched was one of our communications. And it was a really fun com to produce. And I hope you enjoyed it, as I hope you enjoy all the films made in Africa. And we do encourage you to come here and shoot more. We are the home of the Oscar-winning My Octopus Teacher. And of course, Africa has many more stories like that to tell. But first we have to find the money. And some of that money is here in the room. I'm going to do a very short introduction, but essentially we have our first speaker is a surprise from DOCA. Mohammed Said Umar will be telling us about his fund and his amazing initiatives in co-producing and co-venturing to get great documentary stories made on the continent. Mohammed, I'm going to open the mic to you, and when you're finished, we'll move to the next speaker. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Monica. I'm Mohammed Said Umar. I'm the Executive Director of Documentary Africa. I'm talking to you from Nairobi. And thanks to the Encounters team, Mandisa, and all the team for allowing us this opportunity to talk to you. And thanks to our fellow colleagues, Terrence, AZIZ, and OUSMANE as well for engaging in this conversation. Briefly, let me just contextualize DOCA as Documentary Africa. You can follow us on our website, documentaryafrica.org. And it's a Pan-African initiative. As you may well know, Pan-African ID is a very old ID that is trying to be translated into music, into film, into politics even. And DOCA, through the initiatives of different producers, mainly documentary producers on the continent, wanted to translate that ID into a film fund. That was almost 12 years ago. It took almost 12 years to get that ID to become a reality. And we are based in Nairobi. And our mission really is to make sure that the circulation of African perspectives and voices through the form that we all love, which is documentary, is there. And what we want to do as well is to be complementary to the other initiatives. We don't want to be competitive. What we think is to be complementary is the way for us forward. So then we can nourish a self-sustaining documentary ecosystem on the continent for the new generation of producers and filmmakers that are arriving very fast in this. Of course, like Monica said, what we do is for you producers and filmmakers listening to us is we give grants, we give money. But that money is through development, production, post-production, impact, and we also open a grant for documentary organization this year. So that's really the tangible, very concrete way for us to support the documentary film ecosystem. And it's open to everybody, when I mean on the continent. So filmmakers, producers, doc organizations that are based on the continent, working on the continent are eligible. That's very important, especially for you filmmakers from and stakeholders in South Africa and Austral Africa. We've received a lot of really good projects from South Africa for this year, for this year cycle. What we do as well is we're trying to work on the different gaps that the report that initially created DOCA, which is a 700-page report. If you guys want to read it and you have time between two films, we can send you the report that gives you a lot of insight about the whole documentary film ecosystem in the continent, what's missing, what's there, and maybe the way forward. So basically our work is based on that report that was done by 9 researchers between 2012 to 2015. And from that report, we know we have to work with the filmmakers. In the work with the filmmakers is about trying to give them opportunity to go to workshop or residency. It doesn't mean that DOCA is going to do the workshop or the residency. It means that we're trying to find workshop and residency that are already happening and are stable and have a vision that complete ours, and then we support those initiatives. Like for example, our first partnership was in 2019 with Waga Film Lab. Ousmane is one of the initiators of the Waga Film Lab. Maybe he can talk to you. That initiative of Waga Film Lab, DOCA partner with them so we can basically agreed on the documentary projects and find a way to support them. Another initiatives is the Kudugu residency, which is a documentary residency based in Burkina Faso, has been going on for almost 10 years with West African filmmakers from the West African region. So we've been partnering with them for the last 2 years, and we're holding those residency with different mentors. We've partnered this year with Doc House in Tunisia, which is a national initiative in Tunisia for young and aspiring documentary filmmakers in Tunisia. And in eastern part of Africa, we are working with our partners, which are the East African Working Film Group, which is a collective that's been set up last year, and with the East African Film Fund called DocuBox. So this is also part of the work that we do. So we believe that we have to give the tools, or we have to help the people who are here to give the tools to filmmakers in order to better write the story and to better navigate the ecosystem. So we're trying to help them. We also do mentorship. And what the report told us was like there was a lack of African expertise on this global stage of mentorship, expertise, film labs that's all over the place globally. So we have a co-host of mentors, be they filmmakers, be they producers, be they curators that are specialized in a lot of the art form that we also work with. We've mentored the documentary side of Indaba, which is a creative producer program that just finished last week. So this is also another part of the work that we're doing. And just to finish this short presentation, last year the pandemic forced us to reunite and to think collectively. So last year we hold monthly convenings with different doc organizations on the continent, be they encounters, we're talking here in encounters, be they Feed Doc in Morocco, Doc House in Tunisia, DocSpox for the MENA countries, DocuBox, Kudugu Doc, Africa Doc, you name it. So we've created a collective called the Africa Real Collective, which is our brainchild for this alliance of documentary organization. So, and now we're working here at DOCA to create the platform that's going to sustain that professional networks and aggregate our collective efforts. So, and we hope this platform will be ready before FESPACO, so we can introduce this platform that will help all the documentary stakeholders. They can click on the specific doc organization depending on the region they are, or they can all go for general information and resources. So this is the work we're trying to do here at DOCA. We know it's going to be a marathon. This is not a sprint. And we hope that all the different partners that we've been engaging with are going to do this marathon with us. You can also check us on the website, like I said. I'll put the website link here on the chat for everybody to get there and have more precise information. And also one last thing is if you're a documentary filmmaker or producer, you can also write to us if you need of mentorship, if you need of advice. We may not be able, the DOCA team here in Nairobi, to be able to give you the right advice, but we can find the people that can give you the right advice to navigate. We're basically a safe house for the documentary filmmakers. This is what we're trying to be. Thank you, Monica.
Amazing presentation. I feel like I've been all over Africa now, and I'm so excited for the collaborative work you've done during this pandemic. And you spoke about maybe being ready for FESPACO, which is later in the year. And our next speaker is from Ouagadougou, Mr. OUSMANE BOUNDAONE, excuse me for mispronouncing that, is the Administrator Director of Generation Films and Administrator of Ouaga Film Lab and creator of the Fund pour les Jeunes Création Francophonie, which I think we need clarification on pronouncing as well. But over to you in Burkina Faso, Ousmane.
Yes. I'm from Ouagadougou, and Mohamed, Mohamed, hello. I'd like to know if I can speak in French.
Oui, tu peux, je peux traduire, mais il faut
Voilà.
couper. Hein. Generation Films and Waga Film Lab and Young Francophone Creation are all organizations that are based in Ouagadougou. Those are organizations where we're trying to develop here from Ouagadougou. And for Waga Film Lab, it's an initiative that we've started in 2016, and now it's targeting, and we are working with 30 African countries, not only French-speaking countries, but also English-speaking countries and Portuguese-speaking countries. And since 2017, for the fund, Jeune Création Francophone, this is initiatives from our partners in the Western Hemisphere that have been coordinated with the French National Film Commission, the CNC. And for the financial, administrative, and for the visibility of that fund, we are managing that fund from Ouagadougou. So Mr. Moussa Sawadago is the main manager, and I am the administrator with the rest of the team. So the fund has around 500,000 euros per year. We launch one call per year, and we do the funding for development, production, and post-production. So the fund is called Young Francophone Creation, but it's not about age, it's mainly about the experience. So this fund is open to be eligible. You have to be at your first or second feature film, either documentary or fiction.
Premier ou deuxième long métrage, fiction ou documentaire.
So we have 21 countries that are eligible, mainly French-speaking countries, but we also have 3 countries that have French speakers, but also other languages, Seychelles, Mauritius, and Cabo Verde. And those countries which are mainly isolated, it was important to include them as well.
Mais voilà, où le français a une certaine importance et qui sont aussi des pays un peu isolés, pour qui il est important pour le fond de les impliquer.
So since we've opened the fund in 2018, we've reached 80 projects supported and funded at different stages. So development, production, and post-production.
So on a quand même quelques success stories, on va dire, parce que pour cette année, par exemple, on a
some success story. For example, one film that we funded in 2019 is now in Cannes officially at Un Certain Regard. Is the film Faiza, and we've supported that one with quite an important amount of grant. So we have, and in documentary, I can also cite a few like Zinda from Aisha Maki from Niger, that's going the festivals round.
Et qui commence à faire son bonhomme de chemin dans les grands festivals.
You also have other films like Red Card. You also have The Blue House, Mohamed in Cannes, who are already on the circuit and are doing the round as well. They have also benefited from that fund.
Voilà, voici des films, par exemple, qui aujourd'hui sont sur le marché, dans le circuit, et qui ont bénéficié de l'accompagnement du Fonds de la Jeune Création Francophone. Voilà.
So on this fund, we're in the 4th year of the fund, and since last year, we've had the new support from the ACP EU program that's giving us a very interesting support in the framework of a program called Dental.
L'organisation africaine, non pas africaine, qui s'occupe de l'Afrique, des Caraïbes et du Pacifique, liée donc à l'Union européenne, qui apporte un soutien intéressant dans le cadre d'un programme spécifique qui s'appelle Dental.
And that support allows us to give bonuses to the films that have been funded through production. And the bonuses can be the double. It can go up from 50 to 100% of the initial amount that's been granted. So what is interesting with this support is not only like a monetary support, it's also support for us to create an ecosystem. So, because we can help through mentorship, through a residency, through trainings. For example, this year for the Sierra Cannes Festival, we've identified dozens of producers that's going to be at Cannes, and they're going to be able to increase the network and be able to start up their international careers.
Avoir des masterclass, et puis comme ça construire petit à petit aussi leur carrière internationale. Voilà, et un autre dispositif qui est intéressant, mais qui est impliqué dans...
And one interesting aspect is we've, since the beginning of the fund, we've incorporated a broadcaster, to name it, it's TV5 Monde, which is the main French-speaking broadcaster. And since day one, TV5 Monde do pre-sales agreement with the projects that have been funded, which means that the project has the possibility to be broadcast at the end of the production process on that channel. So at this time, as it's day and date, on time and date, we have we're closing the new grant cycle. It's going to be June the 17th. And usually per year, we have between 80 to 100 production applications. We can only select 15 out of them, so we cannot really, we're very selective, but this is the, we'll do a report in due time after we close this session. So, and that success has obliged us to do 2 calls, one for development in February and the one for production from April.
Un lié à l'aide au développement qui se fait dès le mois de février, et l'autre qui est consacré à l'aide à la production qui est lancé à partir du mois d'avril.
So,
voilà.
So just to wrap this up, I wanted to add that this year we're trying to collaborate with FOPICA so we can launch a new program that will be able to integrate National Film Fund.
Voilà, merci beaucoup. Il sera beaucoup plus intégrateur pour faire le pont avec des fonds nationaux à l'image du FOPICA.
Thank you.
Merci, Ousmane. And Mohammed, brilliant translation. So as a reminder to everybody here, you can get interpretation from English to French, but for our speaker from Uwaga, we did ask Mohammed to kindly translate, and he did a brilliant job, French to English. But now we're going back to English. We will speak a little bit slow, so our interpreter can keep Ousmane up to speed. And speaking of speed, I'm so excited that you ended your presentation, Ousmane, with a sort of introduction to FOPICA. We have from FOPICA the permanent secretary for the Fund de Promotion of the Industry Cinematographique and Audiovisual of Senegal, FOPICA. Abdul Aziz Cissé, over to you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Abdul Aziz Cissé. I'm the permanent secretary of the FOPICA. So I will continue in the same way of Ousmane, to speak in French, to better express myself.
Okay, the FOPICA is a national film fund that's been created in 2015 by the state of Senegal. So the budget of the fund coming from the state of Senegal is right now about 1 trillion, I think. But we are going to double that soon. And this dotation is coming straight from the national budget of the state of Senegal.
Alors, il y a également d'autres sources de financement pour ce même fonds parce que il y a un dispositif qui a été créé par l'État justement pour permettre une diversification de ces sources de financement. Et cette diversification, c'est à la fois les recettes qui sont générées par la billetterie nationale. Il y a également le registre public de la cinématographie et de l'audiovisuel. Il y a également les autorisations de tournage, mais également la carte professionnelle qui est délivrée aux professionnels du secteur du cinéma et de l'audiovisuel sénégalais.
So the rules and regulation of the fund allow us to get more input and more funding sources coming from different areas, i.e. The professional cards that the filmmakers, the professional have to take, the income coming from the revenue from the different distributors and cinemas in Senegal. And Abdulaziz, est-ce que tu peux répéter la dernière source entre la carte professionnelle, les revenus?
Oui, c'est la carte professionnelle parce que...
La carte professionnelle, les revenus des salles et la troisième.
La billetterie nationale et le registre public.
Qu'est-ce que tu entends par registre public? Sorry, I just have to have some precision.
Le registre public, c'est l'état civil du cinéma sénégalais.
C'est les impôts?
C'est un dispositif fiscal où tous les œuvres, les professionnels sont enregistrés et cela permet une traçabilité et une transparence du secteur, des relations contractuelles qui sont générées dans le secteur.
Okay, so and the third source of income is the tax that's coming from the industry.
Yeah.
So since its inception, the FOPICA has financed 112 projects. Out of the 112 projects, 17 have been delivered, and the others are in the process, in production process to be delivered. So out of those films that have, out of the 70 films that have been produced and funded, most of them have done the festival circuit, the biggest festival circuit in the world, Cannes, Berlinale, the Mostra, FESPACO, which is a political and ideological source of pride for the state of Senegal, and Toronto, all the biggest festivals.
Donc, excusez-moi, j'ai désactivé la caméra parce qu'il y avait des problèmes de flux pour la bande passante.
Okay, so as Abdulaziz stopped the camera because he had some internet connectivity issues. So those films have received more than 100 awards from those festivals. We are really working to trying to develop a new generation of filmmakers and stakeholders. That doesn't mean that more experienced filmmakers are not eligible for support.
Mais pratiquement tous les maillons de la chaîne de l'industrie cinématographique sont pris en charge.
So out of the missions that the state of Senegal has given to the FOPICA, not only to fund the film, to grant them, but also to be able to fill some of the gaps of the ecosystem of the industry in Senegal. So I've just finished with 2 points. One is about the amount, the maximum amount that we can grant. So for short films, it's 25 millions of CFA francs, the maximum amount. For the feature-length documentary and fiction, we have a maximum amount of 150 millions of francs CFA. Abdulaziz, could you tell us in euros or dollars how much is that in terms of the amount?
Je n'ai pas fait la conversion, mais je pourrais vous transmettre un document avec une réactualisation aussi.
He will be able to...
150 millions, c'est à peu près 200 000 euros.
Okay, 150 millions CFA francs is around 200,000 euros. So for the series, we are around 75 millions of CFA francs. So for the series, we are around 75 millions of CFA francs. One reason that I want to insist on this last point is that we really believe in co-production. That's why we kind of start up or kick off funds. So we're looking for projects that can come through our doors and then go to the international markets and trying to find international co-production. Even if FOPICA is a national film fund from Senegal, but we've managed to make sure that it is open to co-production projects and not necessarily to only Senegalese projects.
That was brilliant, Abdul, and you gave me hope, you know, that we're really learning, and it was so nice to hear that your Senegalese fund is also allowed to fill the gaps. So we'll come back to that because I'm interested to know what gaps you've identified, and I'm sure that our translator, DOCA specialist, will also tell us from his research that got everyone excited in the chat. But before we come back to questions, Abdul, we're going to let Terrence, also a national fund, speak a little bit about his offering and hopefully get us equally excited and hopeful. Terrence KHUMALO from the National Film and Video Foundation, South Africa. Over to you, please. And please speak slowly so our interpreter can maintain the communication.
Thank you, Monica, and hello to everyone. I'm Terrence KHUMALO from the National Film and Video Foundation, Project Manager, Monitoring and Evaluation. The National Film and Video Foundation is an agency of the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. Our mandate is the development and growth of the film and television industry in South Africa. And central to that mandate is offering funding in 4 streams: development, production, training, marketing, and distribution. We fund short films, feature length, probably 2-part miniseries. In production is the same, animation as well. And then training is split into programs and bursaries. And then marketing and distribution, it's the marketing of films, distribution of films, and hosting of festivals. So we have about three calls a year. And the council or the board of the NFVF is responsible for approving all the funding. So projects are evaluated by independent panelists who make recommendations to council, and the council decides whether to approve or decline funding, and they rarely change the recommendations of a panel. The maximum we provide in feature length, it's in production, it's 1.8 million. And we do both in terms of documentaries, both short and feature length documentaries. Unfortunately, due to budgetary constraints to the NFVF's allocation, we do not do TV series. However, we do have what we call TV concepts, where you can develop a pilot and then go on to sell it to a broadcaster or raise financing for your project. The NFVF is also involved with what we call co-productions or the administration of co-productions. South Africa has got 9 co-production treaties, and we administer those treaties. So we are responsible for certifying applications which come through to the NFVF, looking for official co-production status. So our treaties are with Australia, Canada, New Zealand, France, Ireland, Italy, Germany, and the United Kingdom. And so far we have co-produced since 1997, and we've signed with Canada more than 130 films. It's across feature, documentaries, and TV series. Yeah, we also certify films, what we call certificate of nationality, for those who want to export their films. but mostly for investors, South African investors who want to claim from Section 12.0 of the Income Tax Act of South Africa. So that's the summary of what the NFVF does.
So Terrence, I'm going to start my round of questions first to you, and then we'll come around. And we are starting to get some nice questions from the audience. Thank you. But first, I would love you to throw the spear. Are you as inspired by me of possible partnerships with these other funds in Africa? And what in your sort of blue sky approach might that be? And if you could maybe speak about further co-productions on an official side. So part of this is dreaming, possible future collaboration, because we want to develop a living ecosystem here on the continent for emerging and emerged filmmakers who, you know, if you get funding from someone and then can move on and get further funding, as some of the models have spoken to already. So Terrence, could you start that question, and then we'll go back. We'll start with Mohammed, then Ousmane, then ABDOUL. So Terrence first, and then we'll do a round. And go blue sky, all of you, please. Terrence, over to you.
In the absence of formal treaties with the rest of the continent, we have signed MOUs with the Kenya Film Commission, Namibia Film Commission, and so far we had collaborated with the Namibia Film Commission, where 2 of their filmmakers have taken part in the Youth Slate. So they co-produced, we have 10 films. So in that year we had 12 films. So 2 of their filmmakers were part of that collaboration. And we have also an MOU with Imagine Training Institute in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, FESPACO itself. We have expanded as well. We have a collaboration with Carthage Film Festival, where we're looking to expose South African films to the rest of the continent. When we were in Carthage, we started informal discussions with a number of other institutions on the continent about possible collaborations. Yes, so this is an exciting development for us, and we're always looking for new collaborations on the continent and how to work outside of the formal setting. And to further expand that, in the absence of a formal treaty, does not mean that filmmakers from the rest of the continent cannot collaborate with South African filmmakers. They can, through their South African counterparts, apply to the NFVF and then provided they adhere to the funding criteria. So funding is available.
That is hopeful. And Mohammed, give us some blue sky before I ask one more round of clarification, because Terrence said things that made me want to ask. But first to you, Mohammed.
Okay, like I said, our fund is also almost like in the same ideology or in the same vision as for FOPICA. We here for producers, because when we're talking about fund, we're mainly talking about producers. So so we're talking for the producers to be able to kickstart the project. One of the main reasons why this fund exists is because we believe that today, in this day and age, this is a very exciting moment for the industry on the continent. Because like we said Saturday, 10 years ago, FOPICA did not exist. Jeune Création Francophone did not exist. DOCA did not exist. A couple of other Pan-African initiatives were not there. So for me, before just going to the nitty-gritty of what you can do really when you have a DOCA grant, is basically to change the paradigm of the producers and the stakeholders and the people who are decision makers. Like today, producers can really have different partners on the continent and raise enough money to produce good quality films that can be on the international market and stage from within the continent. One reason I'm insisting on this, because for me, I think it's more to do with our different, how you said it in first, blockage, how different mindsets that producers and filmmakers think if I'm a French speaker, I don't have a French co-producer, I'm not going to get money. If I'm an English speaker, I don't have an English or American co-producer, I'm not going to get money. If I'm a Lusophone producer and I don't have a Portuguese or Brazilian co-producer, I won't be able to make the film. So even if it was the case like 15 or 20 years ago, things are shifting. But to be able to allow that shift to happen, decision makers in the continent, that's quite telling that South Africa has 9 co-production official treaties. I remember I was at Cannes when you signed the one with France a long time ago. And and to realize that such a big powerhouse that South Africa has no official treaties, but MOUs, which is really good already, but it's one stepping point with Senegal or Morocco or Nigeria. It's going to take us a lot of time for, I think, everybody to change their mindset and say, I'm a South African producer, I'm a Kenyan filmmaker, I can get a DOP in Mauritius, or I can get a sound recorder in Kenya, I can get money from the NFVF, I can get money from the Kenyan Film Commission, I can get money from FOFPICA, and I can do the film. So basically, this is where we, as DOCA, we're trying to go for documentary, and I think this is where FOFPICA and also OUSMANE are trying to go. And I think it's more to do with the mindset and the paradigm and how we've been thinking our industry, the way forward, and to do with the possibilities, because today the possibilities are there.
Brilliant. Blue sky and grounding in reality. It's happening through all the hard work of your 12 years now. And yes, those first treaties that Terrence and the NFVF signed. We're going to go to Ousmane, and Mohammed, you will have to help him with his response. Ousmane, blue sky, where do you see us going next? And please unmic. Thank you.
So I think we are in the same dynamic with our fund, Jeune Création Francophone. Even if in terms of language and geography, we are much more specific, because we considered, even if it's changing, that this part of the continent had to be sustained and support with a very specific fund. Because as we've been saying, before national film commissions, when they were allowing co-production, you had to basically fill in and be able to get into this kind of format where you need to have only national film crews, and it was more logical, more technical logic than artistic logic when we were doing co-production. So one of the specificity, one of the specifics of this fund is to break that first obstacle. So one of the other specifics, you don't necessarily need to prove that you've already some percentage of your finance already in place to be eligible. So you can be the first fund that you can apply for. It can be a Kickstarter almost fund. And the last thing is important to outline that is that the money goes directly to the main producer who's responsible for the film and was in charge of this whole process, which is by those producers who are based on the continent, who are African producers who are working on the continent. And when we grant them, it's not only just granting them, it's to support them through the different questions that sometimes are the blocking steps when in regards to copyrights, in regards to contracts. This is the only way to be able to develop those producers in the continent. So we believe that this work is important because it allows the producers to gain more skills in terms of supporting their own projects, and it allows them to be able to be reinforced in the practice, and it only through that way that those producers can develop an ecosystem on the continent, and they can also be on the global market and on the global circuit when it comes to distribution and of content.
Voilà, merci, c'est ce que je pouvais ajouter.
It really is inspiring to hear you speak. So hopefully, and you've got proven success. I mean, you've got films in certain regard in France and Cannes this year, and so many other award-winning projects already to prove that this is a model that works, and you're attracting more funds to come and to maybe bring a project to full production. It's very exciting. And I know that Abdul also has some future plans. Possibly he can speak of them, or he can just speak off the cuff, but we will have to ask Mohammed to again translate for your French. Thank you. Abdul.
Thank you very much. Je vais commencer par remercier Mohamed, hein, parce qu'on lui fait jouer le rôle du traducteur.
Okay, thank you. It wasn't planned like that. but Mandisa owe me a trip to Cape Town now.
Ok. Je ne suis pas sûr d'avoir très bien compris la question. Mais ce que je pouvais dire par rapport à ce que... Yeah. Ce que je pouvais
I'm
dire
not
par
sure that
rapport
I've
à ce que
answered the question. So when it comes to FOPICA, one has to understand that cinema in Senegal always had a regional impact. And when I'm talking historically, most of Senegalese filmmakers have had an important role in creating the Pan-African Federation of Filmmakers, and most of them have also worked regionally in trying to increase the film industry on the continent. Spend lots of time signing treaties with big countries of cinema like Canada or other countries, but between ourselves and our neighbors, we did not sign any treaties.
Signons pas de contrat d'accord de coproduction, utiliser nos ressources. L'idée que nous avons eue, c'est j'ai l'impression qu'il y a
yes. And between ourselves and our different neighbors, we did not sign any treaties to maximize and neutralize our resources.
Alors, c'est la raison pour laquelle, depuis quelques années, nous travaillons essentiellement pour développer cela, pas forcément avec les pays qui ont juste un fonds, mais créer ce mécanisme. On a signé avec la Côte d'Ivoire, on a signé avec le Burkina Faso, on a signé avec la Tunisie, on est en train de démarcher d'autres pays également, pour que effectivement ce cadre existe. Parce que quoi qu'on dise, qu'il y ait des accords de coproduction ou pas, les cinéastes et les techniciens de manière générale, ils travaillent ensemble. Donc, il est important de les trouver dans cette dynamique-là et de créer les conditions pour renforcer davantage cette synergie. Peut-être un dernier point, c'est juste insister sur le fait de l'équité et de la justice sur les plateaux de tournage, parce que nous avons constaté que très souvent, quand il y a des équipes, des coproductions avec des équipes mixtes, où il y a des Européens et des Africains, généralement, le traitement salarial n'était pas équitable. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle nous intervenons. Il nous est arrivé d'intervenir sur des projets de coproduction pour renforcer davantage le salaire des Africains pour qu'ils aient le même niveau de traitement salarial que les équipes européennes qui sont sur le plateau.
It happened to us, I want to insist on this point in terms of equity and justice when it comes to on-set, when it comes to the salaries, wages of the crews. So in cases of co-production with European crews, we've realized that there were different treatments when it comes to wages and salaries. And we had to intervene, so we make sure that the crews have the same wage and there's no disproportionate disbursement of the money on the set.
Voilà, je voulais finir par ce point et puis j'espère que j'ai répondu à la question.
So I hope you answered the question.
Yes, and now we're going to open to, and you answered it brilliantly, Abdul. Thank you. And Mohammed, again, thank you for translating. So we have some technical questions from the audience. I'm going to share the love, even though they're directed some to Terrence and some in general. So Mickey Reldenhuis, who had to leave, but she'll watch online. What about co-production treaties between countries on the continent? Can we pave the way for this? And she's a professional filmmaker, so I think she wants to lean in the way Abdul has been listening to industry and building his treaties where people are already active. And Terrence, that leads to the question from Liani Mastorp about co-productions. How many were initiated and driven from South Africa? And how many were brought to South Africa by other producers? And she wants to know also why there were so few Pan-African co-production treaties. So that's a kind of general question, but building on what Abdul said, because there are already treaties on the continent, just not with Southern Africa yet. So Terrence, we'll start with you, and then we'll lean in on whoever else would like to speak.
Remember that the first treaty was signed back in '97. That was South Africa initiated, and the subsequent projects were mostly foreign initiated. However, the trend in the last 5 years or so is more towards South African initiated projects than foreign projects. And then in terms of the why don't we have co-productions or other discussions? Yes, at the moment there are 3 draft co-production treaties under discussion or under consideration by the South African government. So that's with Algeria, Nigeria, and Kenya. So as a start. So we're hoping from the NFVF point of view, but it's a government process, we're hoping to have at least one treaty signed by the end of next year, March. Don't hold me to it, but that's just our wish to have at least by the end of this financial year one treaty. And it's not for lack of trying. We have engaged with a number of countries, and as you know, it's a government process, so sometimes the discussions fall through the process, through the cracks. So we are open, and we aggressively looking for opportunities on the continent. As Abdul has alluded to that fund, we briefly spoke about it about 2-3 years ago. And we said we want to be the first Anglophone country because it's most Francophone, and then in the Southern would like to be the first country to be involved or to be part of that fund. So those are ongoing discussions. But we'll see where it takes us. But yeah, South African government is working on signing at least one co-production treaty on the continent.
Who would like to go next after that brilliant answer from Terrence? Abdul, your mic is unmuted, so maybe you would like to go next. You want to lean in on that? Oh, he's just muted himself. Okay. But I want to say there are a number of really interesting questions inside the Q&A box. And we're getting lots of thanks to all the panelists for this incredibly rich discussion. And there's an interesting anonymous attendee who asked, are there certain power dynamics that affect creative decisions in projects during co-productions? Are there parts of the treaties or other agreements to mediate this? And I would suggest that we just heard You have to make sure people are being paid the same. These are very important decisions and discussions. And by taking money from a fund, you have an extra layer of oversight so that your producers aren't sort of maybe mismanaging, maybe they don't know any better. But I think these creative projects have to be a safe playing field. So thank you, Anonymous. And yeah, and so maybe I'll just do round robin again because I didn't get popcorn. Mohammed, over to you. Thank you.
I think it's battling to hear you. Just to go on the issue of creative. Unfortunately, one of the downsides with co-productions is that they come with dilution, or rather, yes, with dilution of the project, because he who puts on the majority of the funding usually gets to have the bigger say in the project. So they might even steer the project in a direction you'd not be comfortable with, but that's a discussion you can go into. They might want to decide, or they might decide on who the director becomes, or who the key creative crew becomes based on the financial contribution.
I also think maybe when we're talking co-production, because we're talking about film, it's very important to know who you're co-producing with. What have they done before, and what track record they have in terms of co-production experience. And like maybe like Aziz said, filmmakers I know of and producers on the continent, some in different regions have been working together or wanted to work together or want to work together, but the framework is not there. So usually sometimes you really have to find a way to navigate those frameworks that are not really at your advantage, because you realize most of those co-production, we had this talk at ITFA last year, most of the co-production treaties are mainly with European co-producers. That was the game during the last 20, 30 years. And we realized that they brought the majority of the money, like Terrence been saying. So they have a say in terms of the DOP, the creative key personnel, and the crew. You have to pay them in French or German or Belgium or English salary, and you ended up with the problem on the set, etc., etc. So basically, and you can understand that because if France or Belgium is giving money to do a film, they want the national citizen professional to be able to get paid and to get a proper salary for the income and everything. So like a politician said before, states are not philanthropic organization. If they give money either in cinema or whatever, they want to get the reward back. They want to get the investment back. So like I said in my initial intervention, is how do you change that? Because I think where we're at now is basically filmmakers, producers are maybe one stage in advance to us funders, national film commissions and everything. They're already working together, but they can't have the framework to work in a much better way, in a much more secure place where the film and the projects can be understood. And this creates a lot of difficulties because sometimes the budget are inflated. For example, us at DOCA, we've been receiving a lot of projects for production. And when we look at the budget, we know the cost of living in that country, and we know what it is, and we know it's not realistic, but because it's a co-production and they're going through that framework, it's almost not virtually impossible for them to reach the 80% or 70% or 90% that make them comfortable to do the film. because the budget are totally unrealistic in regards to the economy, the market, and everything. So we have created a system, or we have let ourselves be into a system where we've inflating budget, and we've created an unbalanced kind of a system where the creatives are not comfortable or secure enough to develop project. So those are difficulties that we're trying to address, but slowly and surely.
Mohammed, that was really brilliant. And Terrence, thank you for bringing up dilution. And I think DOCA and all of your platform work will help address this. And inch by inch, we will be getting the budgets that are needed and address fairness. Ousmane, would you like to comment on this part of the discussion? And there is that question in our Q&A, which you could maybe also pull into your response. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Oui, la coproduction n'est pas.
So the co-production is not an easy adventure from what I've been witnessing in the different projects that we've been supporting when I look at the contract or the memo deals.
C'est vrai que de ces films-là. Il y a des questions financières qui sont importantes.
Of course, the financial question is very important, but when you look at the budget and when we look at it from a co-production perspective, you realize that the budget takes on another dimension. So I know the finance questions are very important, but the main question and the main issue for me is when it comes to co-production is what we call the lead in the co-production. Who is the lead?
Cette question est importante parce qu'elle a un impact direct sur le droit d'auteur, sur la propriété.
That question is very important because it has a direct link to the copyright issue and to intellectual property of the film. So like ABDOUL said before, now we have, it used to exist way back, but now it's existing again. We have in different countries the registered national infrastructures to register and to the films and to list the film that belong to the country. What is important also to add is, of course, we're making film to get into the distribution, the market, and the broadcasters, but also we're making films because this is a contribution to the national heritage, the national heritage of a country. One of the main issues that we have with all those producers, African producers that we are supporting, is what is their place in the co-production treaties and how do they navigate that place? Because what we've also realized is that some of the contracts are so badly done that it has a serious impact on and it's blocking the exploitation of those films in those countries, and because of the revenue shares that have been badly split, it makes that it creates a certain blockade, certain blocking start.
Voilà, merci.
Brilliant, brilliant. And actually, you're answering some of the upcoming questions, Ousmane. Josh Mwamunga on Facebook asked, what are the obstacles to Pan-African co-production? Language barriers, apathy. And from Hannah, are there certain power dynamics that affect the creative decisions in projects during co-production? Are there parts of the treaties or other agreements to mediate this? Terrence, we're going to start with you. Oh no, Abdul, sorry. And Mohammed, your help again. Abdul, can you just circle on the questions that have come up and these two new ones? Thank you.
So we have to acknowledge certain facts when it comes to our different cinematographies. When you analyze it, you can find there's a hypertrophy from the filmmakers. from the filmmaker's point of view. So, and usually those filmmakers have multiple tasks. They are filmmaker, they are producers, sometimes they even do the distribution of their own film. So we have like some kind of filmmakers that have multiple tasks. So this can sometimes cannot create problems, but for me, the main aspects of co-production is about its power dynamics, but it's also about being intelligent, being able to find different ways to navigate the co-production. So maybe this won't go well, but what I think is, I think you need a lot of experience to enter this co-production world, but also if you look at the different training programs that are proposed to filmmakers on the continent, we can see there's a lack of training programs in the managerial aspect, in the production aspect, in the distribution, and in the all the industry aspects of the film industry. So we do have training programs for filmmakers and for the crews and for the technicians, but we don't have enough when it comes to the production aspects, how to navigate those kind of treaties, co-production, how to navigate the managerial aspects, the broadcasting aspects, the distribution aspect. Okay, so this is where the different Pan-African funds have a strategic role to play in terms of complementing each other, in terms of working together to set up frameworks to train for mentorship, for training those different managerial aspects when it comes to co-production and production, because it can be very tragic to have a project and to support it and to go through the different creative process phase, and at the end, when the project is done, you are deprived of all your rights.
Voilà, c'est ce que je voulais dire par rapport à cette question.
That's what I wanted to add.
Brilliantly translated again, Mohammed. And Abdul, you're correct to say that rights are a huge issue and managerial training is so needed. And I'm glad that some of it is being addressed through the mentoring that Mohammed's platform will bring and other training programs here on the continent. But that brings me to this question. And when we start this round, which might be our last round, depending on how excited everyone is to speak, Terrence, how do we convince government that large investment in developing original local production is worth their time and money? That's from Liani Mastorp, from a professor here at UCT. But I want to add to that is, can talent anywhere on the continent and producers anywhere in the continent come together to apply to NFVF? That was a separate question. It didn't show up here. So if you could answer those two and maybe respond to what your colleagues on the panel have brought up. And yeah, over to you. Thank you.
I'll speak from a South African perspective, because government has acknowledged that film or audiovisual, the audiovisual sector has got a big role to play, and government is actually the biggest funder of film in South Africa. Between 90% of funding for film comes from government. It might be sitting in different pots outside of the NFVF, but they are all government funding. So yes, we also need to realize that we're competing with other spheres within, or social spheres within the country. So it's also about who makes the loudest noise to get the biggest slice from the pot. But from a South African perspective, there's it's not enough, because not enough content gets to be funded. But government is actually the biggest funder of film and for film in the country. I didn't get the second part of the question.
It was about making larger investment and how to convince governments, I think in general. What is a good argument? Maybe in general, Terrence, what does government listen to put more money here?
We always say we're not in the entertainment business. We are not in the business of entertainment. We are in the business of entertainment. So the mistake most people make is not to consider the economic value of film and television. For instance, if you put in, let's say, 20 rands or whatever, there are jobs created within that 20 rands. There are other multiplier effects as well to that 20 rands, which affect other spheres of industry. So they contribute to the GDP. So that's the biggest thing you need to make, is to make the economic argument to government. How much does film, other than entertainment? So there's job creation. There's a contribution to tourism, there's contribution to locations, there's contribution to all sort of things. So yes, the industry does play a big economic role in the overall economic spheres of the country. So that's the biggest argument one needs to make. We started off with a small budget, and then we kept on saying, but our money is very little. And there was the thing, we kept on being asked, but why do you say it's little? Convince us, what is it? And we did a feasibility study and a comparison study. So we gave them a few other countries and said, look, this is what the countries are putting in, this is what they're getting back, and that's how we managed to get our funding increased, because they started seeing the economic value of the industry and what it brings to the country. That's the first question. And I did not get the second question.
I was paraphrasing that long question that's in our Q&A about, but I think you've answered it. And I think I also added from another question, is it possible maybe in future to have a director from somewhere else and a producer from somewhere else and come together and take up the opportunity with the South African component? And I think that was just, I think there are issues around identity in a film to get money from different funds, whereas maybe OUSMANE's fund is a little bit more open. I'm not sure. And if you just want to say where you are and whether you'll open up to more of a Pan-African approach, maybe that would be the response that we're looking for. What are you thinking?
No, at the moment, there must be a South African component to everyone in the collaboration. It does not exclude anyone. It can be someone from Kenya, someone from Cameroon, someone from Tunisia. However, there must also be a South African component to the equation for you to can access national funds.
Nicely said, Terrence. Mohammed, I hope I didn't confuse you. So we're trying to answer this big question and wrap. And I think Terrence opened the door for people to come to South Africa again. Maybe you could just respond from the DOCA perspective. Thank you.
Okay, so from a DOCA perspective, like I said, the main criteria is to be an African producer based on the continent. And then if you want to set up co-production, of course, from a DOCA perspective, what we're looking at, what we're going to favor is co-production with other African producers, because our vision is it's a long-term vision. It goes back to the idea of you have to change the mindset. It's not only the mindset of decision leaders and government or official level, also the mindset of producers. Do we have producers who believe they can produce the film and go to the big, the market, international market, entirely on the continent? If we do have that, then we have gone one step further, because I know filmmakers believe that, I know crews believe that, I know sometimes, you know, DOPs or sound recorder, the like, and they see this external crews coming in and they're like there and they're like sitting and say, why did I get that top job? I'm as competent as this guy from I don't know where. So I do believe that it's also a question of changing paradigms, more than just a question of just creating legal framework. Because like Usman said, when we're talking about co-production, what we have to remember is two producers believing in a filmmaker project and his or her dream and trying to make it happen. And that's really what it's all about. And can two African producers believe in a filmmaker's dream from Senegal or South Africa and gather together and make it happen on a global stage? Because once those two agreed on that, then we all find the different a way to go through Usman, Terrence, ABDOUL, whoever, and trying to get the support that we need. But it also has to be a change of paradigms for all the different sectors of the industry, not only those who are giving the money, but also the creative ones. So I think it's that question has to be answered by everybody, even the curators of film, you know. So basically you got a film, why don't you do your premiere at FESPACO? What do you want to do the premiere at Cannes when it's a documentary? So it always goes all the way, it goes all the way to the different mechanisms. So it's all change of paradigm. And I think this Pan-African idea was a little bit in avant-garde. It was like in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, that huge Pan-African ideas. And I think it was so avant-garde because it was coming from literature and from intellectual and activists and political activists. But I think this century, maybe that idea is not avant-garde anymore, but we can put it into practice in different fields on the continent.
Mohammed, I really enjoyed that response. And, you know, we are in this golden age of content, but to have people change their paradigm and make the content live first here on the continent with curation, with fundraising, with partnerships, and the government as well, where the funds are maybe coming from. And also, as Terrence alluded to, we do have tax incentives in this country for people who do invest. So there are other ways to monetize film as well, and we need to work with each other to learn best in class practice. And I think, Mohammed, you want to go again, and then we'll bring in Usman.
I wanted to add two things that are important to respond to a question that was on Facebook. It's we have to get rid of the apathy, and we also have to think that language is not a barrier, because we can all go over that obstacle of language on the continent. So we have to get rid of that and think that, of course, we have to make sure that language is not a barrier, that we can all work. We can find a way to work, you know, and that we shouldn't stop because of language barriers. And that's very important. We always find a way you can put that language specific in the budget, whatever. We can find ways to overcome that barrier. And that's very important.
Yes, and the tools are coming to be able to translate with AI on your phone, etc. We just then need good data connections. So, but right now we are still translating live. Angela's translating for our French first language speakers, Usman. And Mohammed, of course, will translate back to English for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohamed. Oui, s'agissant de, j'ai vu des questions qui circulaient sur
So one of the
qu'est-ce qui empêche
questions,
le
what
pays
is
le
preventing
développement comment dire,
co-production
coproduction des pays
treaties
africains.
between African countries?
C'est d'abord le niveau de,
First and
comment
foremost
je
is
vais
the
dire, le
level of
niveau
the
même de
industry in different
cinématographique
countries.
dans chaque pays.
So like we said
C'est comme Mohamed l'a
before,
dit, les
filmmakers are
cinéastes
already in
sont en
advance
avance,
when
sont en
you
avance
compare
sur
it to
les
the
États
States, because when they
dans
want to
leur
make a film, they
collaboration, dans ce
know
qu'ils veulent
what kind
faire,
of
parce
strategies they
qu'ils
have to
savent,
do,
voilà, quand ils ont
and
des
they have to
besoins
go
de
through in order to
financement,
get the
ils ont des
funds
stratégies pour
and in
organiser
order
les différents fonds qui
to
existent
co-produce
ici et
the
là.
films.
Mais
And
force est
it
de reconnaître
seems
que
like
dans
in
beaucoup de
some
pays, il y a
countries
un déficit de la
there's
formation
no direct
des
person
cinéastes.
we can liaise with when it
Donc,
comes to the
c'est comme s'il
official
n'y a pas d'interlocuteur au niveau du public.
governments
Il n'y a pas
or
d'interlocuteur. On ne sait pas qu'est-ce
co-productions
qui se passe
based
dans ces
on
pays.
treaties and official treaties.
Or, la coproduction, c'est basé sur souvent des accords.
But
Donc,
when
quand il
there's
y
a
a une
clear
vraie
strategy
stratégie, une politique
and when there
cinématographique du
are rules and
pays, avec
regulation and
une
official clear
réglementation claire,
strategy
avec
and
une
public
volonté d'aller dans la
strategy in the
coopération,
country when
je
it
crois que
comes
là,
to
on peut espérer
treaties
qu'il y
and
ait de la
co-production,
coproduction cinématographique.
then we can enter the
Parce qu'en dehors de
cooperation
ça,
and
ce
the
qui se fait,
co-production.
ben, aujourd'hui, si j'arrive à voir des films sud-africains,
So, because
des séries
outside of that,
sud-africaines
I can see South
circulent
African
beaucoup. C'est une
series that
chaîne
are
qui n'appartient pas à
doing
l'Afrique,
the round,
à
for
l'Afrique du Sud.
example, but if you look at it a
Et
more
je ne
profound
suis même
way,
pas sûr que
then
les Sud-Africains voient
doing the
des
round on
séries burkinabés ou des films
broadcasters,
burkinabés.
that it's not
Voilà,
it's not
je
an
suis là,
African
il y a
broadcaster,
comme
it's
une sorte
Canal
de
Plus.
flou à l'horizon
So
sur
there's something,
justement
it's a kind
comment
of
nous
blurred
regardons, comment
a
on se regarde, on
situation,
se
because I'm not
développe à
even sure
travers nos
that South
films.
Africans
Et justement, quand
can
on
be
prend la
able
carte de
to
l'Afrique,
view
voilà,
Burkinabe's
à partir
series of
de
films.
ce que nous
So it's a kind
faisons
of a blur
au Fonds de
situation
la
where
jeune
we
création
can't
francophone,
see
ça
each
nous donne une
other and see the
cartographie. Il y a
different
des
films
pays
that
qui
we're
sont
all doing.
inexistants.
We have some
Par
tragic
exemple, si
questions
les points
because we're
noirs
sure that those
sur
countries are
la carte
consuming films that are
voilà,
films that have
de
been made,
l'Afrique,
but
on a des
who's
problèmes.
making them and
Et
how are they
pourtant, on est
consuming
sûr
them?
que
So it's kind of a tragic
des films
situation,
se
but we have
consomment
to
dans ces
also
pays-là. Et d'où
understand
viennent-ils?
that
Comment
situation.
sont-ils faits? Etc. C'est des questions vraiment voilà, qui sont assez tragiques, quoi. C'est un constat. Voilà, donc pour moi, ces barrières-là sont
So I think
d'abord politiques.
those
Voilà, il faut
obstacles
que,
are
voilà, au niveau
mainly
de nos...
political
Je ne
obstacles,
sais pas
but
si
the
nous,
more
on peut dire
countries
ça, mais oui, on peut toujours
that
parler.
have
Mais voilà, chaque pays choisit ses
policy and
priorités.
advocacy
On
when
se
it comes
dit,
to
plus il y aura des
filmmaking and
pays
the
qui ont une politique
industry and rules and
cinématographique, plus
regulation,
la
the
coproduction
more
aussi entre nos pays peut
cooperation
se
and
faire et
co-production can
on
be
pourra
made,
mieux apprendre
and then we can learn
les uns
from
des
each
autres.
other.
So that was a nice thank you.
Thank you.
Ousmane, we're going back to Senegal. Abdul, would you like to add to this part of the conversation and maybe add some closing comments as to where you want to see us next? And as the moderator, I'd also like to say the second half of this conversation will start tomorrow at 11 with producers in discussion about working with funds like you. So Abdul, over to you, and Mohammed, please continue your great translation.
So I don't know if it's a comment, but to add on that aspect, I want to outline that this is going to be effective, but step by step. When you look at the map of the African film industry, one realize that language barrier is a huge obstacle, and you also realize that filmmakers don't know each other, be they coming from English-speaking countries, Portuguese-speaking countries, or French-speaking countries.
Qu'on soit de l'Afrique francophone, soit de l'Afrique anglophone ou de l'Afrique lusophone, de manière générale. Alors, ça me permet aussi de reprendre une vieille idée.
So this allows me to maybe put back in the spotlight an old idea that we've launched at Carthage 2-3 years ago, that if you want to create the conditions for co-production, we need to take everything back to the basics and start with training. So to raise that desire to make film together and to co-produce together, I think we have to go back to the basics of training. So for example, if a Kenyan filmmakers and professionals from Senegal and South Africa want to be together and do a film, they need to know the country's reality, the respective countries' reality. They need to know each other better. So one of the ideas that emerged from that discussion was that maybe to allow in the film schools and the training programs to break those language barriers and make sure that a Portuguese-speaking student or English-speaking students or an Arabic-speaking student or French-speaking students or English-speaking can navigate and go to a film school that's not in his region, and then be able to be eligible to go to that film school so he can learn from different territories and different way of thinking and working and producing. So to impulse and to the mechanic and the dynamics of co-production on the continent, we also need to open this kind of gates of bringing filmmakers in residency or labs, so from different language, different area of the continent, so they can learn about the country, the specific countries and the realities of that specific countries. So they can be able to navigate those countries better and then be able to engage and later on start co-productions. So my conviction is that Africa is a huge continent when it comes to geographically speaking, but I think when it comes to the societies and the different stories, and we have a lot in common. So I think if we manage to create the basics and the fundamentals for that to emerge, then we can develop co-production.
Voilà, merci beaucoup.
Thank you, panelists. Abdul, brilliant closing. Our time ran out, but it was so worth it to hear that hopeful picture. Mohammed, wonderful presentation from DOCA and translation help as well. Ousmane, amazing. And I agree, you're writing to one of the questions in the chat. I think you're right there. Is it good to end in a positive place, to visit each other's festivals, to try to do it more now that we're in the virtual blended space. Encounters we're in right now, thanks to, in part, Terrence KHUMALO and the NFVF. You have been really supportive of this Southern African initiative for documentary, and it allows these spaces for over 12 years, partnerships to grow. But I'm coming away from this with a lot more hope, and I'm going to listen to tomorrow's session from the producer side, and let's keep these relationships growing, and we'll see you and your film soon. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye, Terrence. Bye-bye, Aziz. Bye-bye, Ousmane.
Merci beaucoup, Mohamed.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Yeah.
everyone. Bye,
Yeah.
Terrence.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Mohamed.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Lena.
Mohamed.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Monica, and bye. See
Bye,
you
Mandisa.
maybe in
Bye,
FESPACO
Terrence.
next time
Yes.
in October.
Hope to see everybody at FESPACO.
Hope to see you. Terrence,
Sure.
KHUMALO. Hope to
Terrence,
see
you
you.
have to come to FESPACO.
I will.
Yeah,
Okay.
you have to.
Sure.
You have
Okay.
to.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Monica,
Okay,
allez,
see you.
bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.